IRS has finally finalized the 10-year rule, how they're going to interpret it. What does this mean for you? It will likely impact you. Got that and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. You might still be digesting all of the changes from the Secure Act 2.0. That's right, it was passed late 2022, and there's over 100 tax law changes that are scheduled to take effect in 23, 24, now 25, 26, and beyond. And it's complicated. Lots of changes, and the IRS is still trying to figure out, well, how are we going to interpret the rules now and really enforce these? That's Secure Act 2.0. Well, what about Secure Act 1.0 that was passed late 2019 and to take effect 1/1 of 2020? Yeah, there are still rules there that have up until this point had yet to be clarified. How in the world is the IRS going to interpret these rules? The big change in Secure Act 1.0 had to deal with required minimum distributions and the elimination of the stretch IRA. Now, these two things are combined, but RMDs, required minimum distributions, prior to Secure Act 1.0, you had to start taking a minimum amount out of your pre-tax retirement accounts when you turned age 70 and a half and each year thereafter. Well, Secure Act 1.0 moved that age to 72, and by the way, Secure Act 2.0 moved it to 73, scheduled to be moved to age 75. I digress. But also in Secure Act 1.0, it said if you inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, okay, and I'm oversimplifying here, but if you inherit it from your spouse, you still have the option to turn that IRA into your own IRA. But if you inherit an IRA, if you're a named beneficiary on an IRA that you inherit it from someone that's not your spouse, then in the past, before Secure Act 1.0, you could take out as much of that money as you wanted to. If you needed all of it, you could take it all out. It's taxable, but not penalized. But if you didn't need it all, or you wanted to keep it invested for the long term, you had to at least withdraw a minimum amount out. You had to do a required minimum distribution no matter what age you were, and you had to draw a little bit out every single year, but in that way you could stretch this IRA out over your lifetime as well, taking this little amount out each and every year. Secure Act 1.0 eliminated the stretch IRA. You were grandfathered if you'd inherited an IRA from someone that passed away before 1/1 of 2020, but from 1/1 of 2020 and thereon, the stretch IRA was gone and it was replaced by the 10-year rule. And this 10-year rule was expected to behave like the 5-year rule that existed in just for Roth IRAs and some other accounts prior to this. And that is that, well, the account needs to be emptied within 10 years. That's it. That's the only rule that you need to know. From the time someone passes away, by the end of the 10th year after that person died, the account needs to be emptied. Well, that was how the law was sort of written and interpreted by everyone in the financial world when it was passed in late 2019 and rolled out in 2020. Well, in 2022, early 2022, I believe, the IRS, maybe it was late 2021, the IRS released an updated publication, 590B, and they had all the text of how they're going to interpret all the rules, but it wasn't even in the text, it was in an example. It was in an example where it said that if you inherited the IRA from someone that was already taking required minimum distributions themselves, so they were over age 70 and a half or over age 72, now 73, then you needed to continue to take a required distribution every year and withdraw the money, empty the account within 10 years. And that it kind of caught everyone by surprise. No one was expecting that that's how the rule was actually supposed to work. And we don't believe that's how Congress actually intended the rule to work when they passed it as law. So the IRS said, okay, send us your comments, send us your feedback, and if this is what we decide, we're not going to enforce it. So if you didn't make a required minimum distribution in 2020 or 2021 or 2022 from someone that had, from an IRA that you'd inherited from someone that passed after 1/1 of 2020, we're not going We're not going to penalize you. We're not going to enforce that you take it. And if we later rule that you do need to take these annual distributions, these required minimum distributions, we're not going to force you to make it up. So that's what we've all been waiting on for the past 2 years, even though we've been waiting on this rule for 4.5 years. And the IRS has just continued to punt and said, hey, we're still deciding. And for 2023, you don't need to take a minimum distribution, even if we require it. And in early 2024, they said, we're still deciding, expect a final decision soon, but even if we require it, we're still not going to force you to take one in 2024. And I did a video about that and kind of walked through the special notice by the IRS, because it seemed like they were suggesting that this was going to be their final ruling. And certainly, just a couple weeks ago, the IRS came out with their final ruling that yes, that example is right, and how everyone in the financial world interpreted the rule initially was wrong. That if you inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, who passed away after 1/1/2020, if they had already begun taking required minimum distributions, if they were past their required beginning date, so past age 72 or past age 73, then when you inherit those dollars, you have to continue to take a required minimum distribution each and every year and have the account emptied within 10 years. So that is the new rule, and it's going to basically become enforced in 2025. That's when these annual required minimum distributions will have to start. So here's the deal. I'm just going to overly simplify. If you inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, or you believe that, hey, mom and dad are getting older and their health is declining, this event might occur, that's a financial planning issue. You need to be working with a certified financial planner and that's doing comprehensive financial planning and get some guidance. And this is not a shameless plug. I'm not saying, because they want to help manage the money. You're going to need to make some investment decisions, but more so than that, this is going to impact your tax planning. It's going to impact your present financial position. It could impact your protection plan. I already mentioned investments could impact your retirement plan and your legacy planning. Guys, this is going to impact all 6 areas of your financial life. You need to proactively plan ahead. How will you make great decisions? Here's a few of those decisions that could be impacted. One, I think this means, now that we know this final interpretation, I think this is another advantage for the Roth IRA, making Roth IRA contributions instead of pre-tax. So if you're on the fence, but you might be receiving in the future an IRA that from a parent that is going to be this new 10-year rule, it might be better for you to make Roth contributions instead. It might be wiser for you to make Roth conversions earlier on as well, because if you stand to inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, you have less tax flexibility. It's going to be taxable. You're going to be forced, whether it's a high tax year or a low tax year, you're going to be forced to draw some dollars out based on this new rule. So advantage Roth, you've got to make that decision. Second, tax planning throughout your career, I'm going to say is no longer optional. I wouldn't have said it was optional to begin with, but most people understand the requirement of filing their taxes, preparing their taxes every year. No one has this requirement of doing tax planning, of proactively looking at what opportunities exist for you to pay the least tax over your lifetime. But it should be. There should be. That's one of the 6 areas of your financial life. Not preparing taxes, but planning for your taxes. And this is going to make that a non-negotiable. You have to do tax planning throughout your career so that you're aware of what things could land in your lap and impact your tax picture, because this new 10-year rule, you don't have choice. You no longer have choice. Working with an individual whose mom died, we were her financial planner. Mom died in late 2021. Well, this individual, she's single. She makes almost $200,000 a year, so she's in a high tax bracket, but she's looking at retiring within the next 8 years. So we've said, okay, let's not take any withdrawals from mom's IRA unless we have to, and instead we'll just take a withdrawal. We'll use those dollars first. As soon as you retire and your income goes down, you're looking for a way to replace your income, we'll draw out of the account then. No longer. She's now forced to take a required minimum distribution. You have less flexibility. You need tax planning throughout your career. And then finally, in your retirement plan, I've done some videos, we've talked about whether you should plan on an inheritance in your retirement planning. By default, you shouldn't, but if you do, this rule now means if you're expecting to inherit an IRA, you have less flexibility. And if you think, say, for example, you're going to inherit $250,000, I wouldn't put that whole $250,000 as a component in your financial life, because it's going to have to go through the sieve of Uncle Sam. It's going to have to go through that filter, and you're going to be left with less of that $250 because of the inflexibility with taxes. Hopefully you're doing tax planning, you can manage it and mitigate it, but it's going to, you have less flexibility. Those are just a handful of the implications and just a broad overview of this new law and how they're officially ruling on it. But work with your certified financial planner. This will impact your plan. If there's a chance of you inheriting dollars from someone that's not your spouse, inheriting an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, you need to know these rules. You need to start planning. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go on and take your next wise step in your financial life.